Hi all, thought I would come on and give my quarterly reading wrap up to you. I decided that was going to be easier at the start of the year before I realized how many books I was actually going to get through. I have gotten through 23 up to this point, so I've decided to, of course, just do that now. I read 8 books in both January and March, and then February I read 7 books, so not too terribly bad. I'm going to do this in 2 parts. I'm going to do my physical books first, and then any book that I don't have the physical copy of anymore, just because I realized when I was originally filming this that it was going to take too long for one video to do all 23 books. So, and it might be a little easier for me to do the voiceovers inserts that way. So I'm going to start with my 3-star reads for the year. I'm going to start with Meddling Kids. I have done a whole TikTok where I rant about this. I'm not going to rant about it again in this TikTok. If you want to go watch that, you're more than welcome to. Just know that overall, I didn't enjoy the writing style. I didn't like that he was making up words. The whole plot line felt very off to me. Like I said, lots of complaints. You can go watch that TikTok if you feel like it. My next 3-star read of the year was The Dark Side of Nowhere. This is by Neal Shusterman. This used to be my favorite middle grade read, but I haven't read it until, since I was in middle grade. So I want to say I was maybe in 5th or 6th grade when I read this. So I would have been around 11 to 13. I remember it being more dystopian. I remember it being more exciting. It's marketed with thriller elements, and I just didn't feel any of that. Even as a middle grade read, of course, taking that with a grain of salt. The ending also falls really flat, like it's just missing something. It has a great storyline, and the plot builds up really, really well, and then it just kind of falls off the place of the planet. So, like I said, mostly it was just, I think, ruined for me because I remember it being more exciting and more marketed towards dystopian rather than just a general sci-fi kind of book. But Neal Shusterman has really great works in general. I love the Unwind series, so definitely still give him a chance. So my last 3-star of the quarterly wrap-up is on Kindle, so I'll talk about that in another video. We're just going to get right into the 4-star reads. We have books 4, 5, and 6 for the Vampirate series. I am, of course, not going to talk about those. They were all 4 stars. In fact, the whole series, except for book 3 was 4 stars for me. And something about book 3 really hit me, and I really connected with the characters at that point. But what I will talk about is the first book in the series. So this is Vampirates. This is Demons of the Ocean, I believe, is the first one. I had never heard of this series until I met my roommate. We ended up buddy reading this. This was the first book that they've read in a while. So, it ended up being pretty good. It's not something that I generally will seek out because it is more fantasy leaning. But I enjoyed this for what it was. I think I really connected with the pirates element at the end of the day, which I've actually ended up seeking out a little more since I read this series. But it's about twins who lose their dad, and then of course they try to escape their small town on a boat, and they get lost and separated in the ocean. Definitely, been told by my roommate to market it as, Twilight meets Pirates of the Caribbean. Gives you a little bit of that, vampire romance, but also pirate action that you're looking for. These are middle grade reads, technically, but they were great. I ended up loving them a lot. I would highly recommend this series to anyone. I'm eventually going to own the UK covers of these because they're gorgeous. So the next 2 4-star reads I'm going to talk about is the Stung and Cured duology. This is a great YA dystopian duology. Basically, they try to get these bees genetically modified to make them last longer, so they're no longer an endangered species, but it ends up creating this super disease that affects a lot of the youth on the planet. But I think these were great, perfect reading pace for me. I don't think they felt very rushed. I really loved the characters. The second book wasn't really necessary, but I think it gave more depth to the characters you see in the first books, even though it's not focused on those 2 main characters. I think it came out really great, and in fact, if they ever make special editions of these, I will be buying them for my collection. it is top priority. So if anyone sees anything like that, let me know. My next two 4-star reads aren't from the same author and they aren't part of a series, but they do have a problem that I noticed in both books that I didn't really care for. So we have Jay's Gay Agenda and also Kiss and Tell. They are both YA queer romances, of course. And that's great, and I love that. However, both of them felt very much like they felt like they needed to repeat that the main character was gay over and over again. And I get that a little bit to an extent, but also we obviously know the main character's gay. We're in it for the long run. It's not necessary to repeat that over and over again. So it just felt very grinding in my brain to be every third page. It feels like saying, "Oh, I'm gay." We know. But overall, stories were great. This one is a small town gay, only gay in the town, moves to a big city. He comes up with this agenda for things he'd like to do. He's learning to grow into himself, and he gains this huge ally community. It's really great. It's really wholesome. I think he really matured by the end of the book, so I think it's a great YA queer romance. So this one is basically Hunter Drake is the lead singer of Kiss and Tell. They are this band that goes across the states right now. They're doing a little tour. They've got an opening act called Parquet, or I think it might just be Park. I'm not really sure how that one's pronounced. But it has to do with like Hunter being thrusted in the spotlight all the time and being advocate for gay kids, and he loves doing it, but then his management is trying to say, hey, we think this would be really good for your image after you break up with your ex, and it's just a whole mess. But it did fill my inner desire for fan fiction feeling kind of stuff. I haven't really read fan fiction since I was 13 or so, but when I did, it was a lot of the YN your name kind of stuff with band members, because of course I'm a band geek. So that was 7 out of my 15 4-star reads for my quarterly wrap-up. We're going to move on to my last 2 books. They are both my 5-star physical reads. The rest of these books will be on my second TikTok. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Happily Never After. This is by Lynn Painter. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm obsessed with Lynn Painter. I have 2 of her crew neck merches. I have custom-made earrings from her. She is so super sweet. I have met her twice now, and of course I got this book signed. And not only did I get it signed by Lynn, but I got it signed by Kevin, because I think the 2 of them are just the cutest darn things together. It makes me happy. But I devoured this book in a day. I want to say it maybe took me about 2 hours to read front to back. It basically has a main male lead who is an objector. He gets hired to go to weddings and object formally for people he knows their fiancés are cheating on them, or they're using them for money, or whatever the case may be. And of course the female lead is one of these people at the wedding, and afterwards he's like, hey, do you want to be the objectress to my objector? And so, they're both kind of cynics about love. But of course, in most rom-com movies, they're like, oh, you don't believe in love? You don't really think it's a thing? Nah. Bet. You 2 are together for life now. It's super cute. It's super good. I love it so much. Okay, and then my last 5-star read that I really have to quickly talk about is This Delicious Death. I started it last year. I devoured it. It was pretty good. It's a YA dystopian, which is my favorite genre. It has to do with a Halloween, which basically turns people into ghouls, and they have to eat flesh to survive, and so they make this synthetic flesh so that everything can go back to normal. But then, of course, these girls go on this trip, and somebody drugs the ghouls, so they start acting out and having to feast on the flesh. Only complaint I had about this book was that the love interest took way too long to realize that they were in love with each other. But of course, I think that's just more YA for you. So that was my physical book wrap-up. I will be posting my non-physical book wrap-up here shortly. Thank you for watching.